Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Margarita and today I'm here to bring you my April wrap up. So in the month of April, I went through a horrible reading slump, but looking at the number of books that I read, it's not as bad. Just compared to the rest of the year, it's not good. I read a total of 7 books. I also participated in the O.W.L.s readathon. I did not read the books that I was hoping to get the career that I was hoping, but I made it work. I'll let you know what my career paths are for the newts at the end of this video. Little side note, sorry I look like poo. I basically just woke up. I was on call for 12 hours last night, and needless to say, I didn't get a lot of sleep. So you're just gonna have to deal with this. Sorry, not sorry. So this month I'm going to go in order of books that I read. Because I was too lazy to actually sit down and order them from least to favorite. That's the whole reason. So the first book that I read is A Heart in the Body of the World by Deb Coletti, and that satisfied Muggle studies. I read a contemporary. It is a YA contemporary about this girl who suffers from PTSD because of this event, and she decides that in order to try and deal with all the emotions of this thing, she's going to run across the country to Washington, D.C. And I'm not going to tell you what the event is. It's not really a spoiler, but you learn as you go. You kind of have a clue in the beginning, but you learn as you go and you come to realizations as she does. It's very well written. I really enjoyed it. I think the reason I didn't give it 5 out of 5 and I only gave it 4 out of 5 stars is because it's all me. I kept forgetting that I had it as an ebook on my phone, so I would prioritize other books, like physical books that I had, because I could see them. So long periods of time went by between my reading of this book and actually finishing it. So again, that's me. If I had just sat down and read that book, it probably would have been a 5 out of 5 stars. The message is really good. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if you have not read it yet. The next book that I read was for, I have like 4 different things here, sorry, was for divination set in the future, and that was Children of the New World by Alexandra Weinstein, and these are short stories set in the near/distant future. And they were okay. I think the best one was the first one, which was, what is it called? Saying Goodbye to Yang, and that one's about a, like an artificial intelligence robot that they got as a companion to their daughter, who they adopted, and one day he dies, and like the family's trying to come to terms with it, and they realize that they thought of him as a son. And I think that was the best one. I think that this book really focused way too much on sex, honestly. Like, there were things about sex in here that did not need to be in here, and that was like, why? Do we have to talk about this? So, I don't know. It was okay. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It's not great. I won't be rereading it. It was okay. It was a relatively quick read. I got this as an audiobook, so that really helped me read it. Otherwise, I probably would not have finished it. The next book that I have to talk about satisfied the challenge of Charms, age line, read an adult work. And for that, I read Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. Again, I also read this as an audiobook. Audiobooks were my savior this month. I cannot begin to tell you. I would not have read as much without audiobooks. But this is the story about doors that start opening to different places, and it follows our 2 main characters. I can't even remember their names right now. Saeed and Nadia, who are they in Iran? Oh, maybe it doesn't tell you exactly where they are, but they're basically in like a Middle Eastern country that is on the brink of war, and things are horrible. I mean, bombs are dropping all the time. It's not a good time. So they start hearing about these doors that open and you can go to another place. So they start looking for these doors. And that concept sounds really cool, but I thought that it wasn't explored very well. And it's basically just about Nadia and Saeed and their relationship, which is fine, but I don't really care about their relationship. It meant nothing to me. So I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I probably will not be keeping it. A friend of mine very generously gave it to me when she DNF'd it, or she didn't want it anymore, so I'm gonna be doing the same thing. I'm gonna be getting rid of this. The next book that I read was so good. Okay, and that is Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand, and this satisfies the challenge of herbology, a book with plants on the cover. It's a whole forest. So this is basically about our young protagonist Finley, who is sent to her grandparents' house for the summer because things at home are not going well, and her parents want time to like try and work things out between themselves without Finley being there and having to be exposed to that. But Finley has never met this side of her family. It's her father's side of the family, and she's never met her grandparents. She doesn't know her cousins or her aunts or anything like that. She knows nothing about this side of the family, so she has to spend the summer there. And Finley is the queen of this place called the Everwood. And the Everwood, she writes stories about the Everwood, and it's kind of her escape from reality. And it is so good. This book talks about, you know, family secrets, how that affects the whole family, depression, anxiety. It is so good, and I love it so much, and I really think everybody should read this. It is so wonderfully written. I love everything about it. Finley, I just want to wrap her in the biggest hug. Please read it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was so good. And then you get story, so it goes back and forth between Finley talking to you and her writing the stories of the Everwood. Please read it. It's so good. The next book that I read is The Other Einstein, and I chose that to fulfill the Ancient Runes, which was a retelling. So that might be stretching it a little bit, but it's basically a retelling of Albert Einstein's life with his first wife. And all I can say is, before I read this book, I had no opinion about Albert Einstein one way or the other. Like, I didn't care. I was like, he was smart, that's all I know. After reading this book, he's a piece of poo. What a horrible human being. So obviously this is a fictionalized story that someone came up with based off of things that they have found, like letters between them and people who knew them, him and his first wife. But he is such a horrible person. So basically his first wife, it helped him come up with all of these theories that he's so famous for, and he stole them from her, which is basically the story of this book, and how she has to live in the shadow of Einstein and who Einstein is to her and how their relationship changes. I actually picked this up because my friend Sarah really loved it, and I found the audiobook and I was like, you know what, why not give it a shot? She really liked it. I'm sure I'll like it. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely really enjoyed it. Pissed me off a whole heckin' ton because Albert Einstein is a piece of poo. If even a little bit of this is true, no, he's a horrible human being. The next book that I read was The Cruelest Month by Louise Penny, and actually I DNF'd this book, but I'm still gonna count it towards my my O.W.L.s, so shoot me, but I needed it. So this one could actually fulfill 2 different things. So one of them is History of Magic, which is a book published 10 years ago, or Potions, which is the next ingredient. It's a sequel. This is like number 3 in a series. So it can count to either of those, and depending on what career I choose, it will decide which of those. Anyway, that's besides the point. So this is basically a murder mystery set in Three Pines, which is like this really pretty secluded Canadian town, I guess. And these people, these adults in this town, decide to have a seance on Easter, and one of them drops dead of fright. Or did they? I was listening to this as an audiobook, and honestly, at one point I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to go back and figure out where I fell asleep. So that was the point when I decided I don't need to read this. It just wasn't for me. People love this book. You should see the hold list for the audiobook of this and any of the other like books in the series. People love it. It just was not really for me, and that's okay. There are other things for me. And the last book that I read, and this counts for, what does it count for? Arithmancy, which is a work written by more than one author, and that is Things We Haven't Said, Sexual Violence Survivors Speak Out, and this is edited by Erin Moulton, and it's just all of these different survivors' stories. And the one thing I really, really liked about this book is they got to tell their story however they wanted, either as a letter, a poem, you know, actually just writing about it, however they felt best to express it, they could. And then afterwards, Erin would do a little interview with them, and she would ask them questions like, you know, if there was someone in your situation, how would you tell them? Or like, what would you tell someone who is in your, that's the word. What would you tell someone in your situation? Or, you know, what advice can you give to people who want to help? Or, you know, are you recovered? What does recovery mean to you? And it delves a lot deeper than just the story. And at the end, it tells you where they are now, because this is mostly about people who suffered sexual abuse as children into their teenage years, not as adults, but as young people, and how that affected their lives. And it is so good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It's a really short book. It's over 200 pages, but that's with, because another thing that's really amazing about this is that at the end of the last story, it has like all these resources for teenagers or whoever, because this is a teen book, it's a young adult book. So it has all these resources for people. So where to find help, and there's statistics, there's words and terms, because one of the things, especially younger victims, they didn't know how to tell people what had happened. They didn't have the words for it. It has resources. It has all kinds of wonderful things at the back of this book, and I just think that this is a really, really important book. It was definitely hard to read. Under 200 pages for the actual book, and it took me like a month to read, because I can't just sit down and read a book like this full through. You need to take a break. At least I need to take a break, because it is such heavy subject matter. And one of the volunteer things that I do is working with victims of sexual assault. So like to be surrounded by that all the time is just too much. But this was really, really good. And if you're looking for something about, you know, rape or sexual assault or anything like that, you're looking for a good book, I would recommend this and Not That Bad, edited by Roxane Gay. Those are two really good books about people's stories and experiences, and I highly recommend them. But this one has that special twist of talking to the author of the story and figuring out where they are now and how they've recovered and stuff like that. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of April. So now I'm going to tell you the 2 careers that I could potentially do, so that I would need to do my newts for, and that is a seer or a writer/journalist, which I'm not angry about, because when I was younger I always wanted to be a writer, and being a seer would be pretty cool, I think. Really disappointed in myself that I did not get my Care of Magical Creatures in, but that's okay. Next year I will try. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, your thoughts and opinions, what you think I should do for my newts, and if you passed your OWLs, what careers can you do? And I will see you guys next time. Bye!